Good evening and welcome back. Now, Kenya is in the middle of one of its biggest housing shifts in decades. Affordable units are being handed over under Boma Yangu. A housing levy is already in place. And for the first time in years, banks are offering single-digit mortgages for qualifying borrowers. On paper, this should be a turning point, but in reality, home ownership is declining, rents are rising, and the mortgage market remains one of the smallest on the continent. Tonight on Unpacked, to examine the gap between what's being built, who can actually afford it, and why many are stuck in the rental trap. Every year, millions of Kenyans pay rent faithfully, often painfully.
It's not normal.
Nairobi landlords, Nairobi landladies, Nairobi realtors, Nairobi agents. Tafadhali, please somebody explain to me the problem with the rent in this Nairobi.
Rent is not what it used to be. I feel like rent in Nairobi is just diabolical because I did house hunting myself and the prices I was being told, I just told them, unrent that rent and put it in rice. It's not normal. It's not normal.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, home ownership in Kenya has dropped to 61%, down from 64% a decade ago. Meanwhile, in urban Kenya, nearly 40% of residents are renters, a number rising faster than urban population growth. KNBS data also shows that rents in Nairobi have risen by more than 30% in the last decade, while real wages have barely moved.
Is home ownership even possible for a generation? Or are we just going to work to pay rent forever? And remember, rent is increasing year in, year out.
For many households, rent consumes between 35 and 50% of monthly income, making it nearly impossible to save for a deposit.
Most banks require, before you can get a house loan, a home loan, to put in a down deposit of 10%, 20%. A lot of people did not have money to raise 10%, 20%. But we've opened up that. We have 105% financing. And what it means is that you can get money for the full house. On top of that, the 5% goes to cover closing costs.
To understand how we got here, we need to look back. Kenya's affordable housing journey began in the 1960s and 1970s with low-cost estates like Jericho, Kaloleni, and Shauri Moyo. But in the 1980s and 1990s, government stopped building houses. Private developers stepped in and prices rose. In 2004, the National Housing Policy revived the conversation. And in 2007, Vision 2030 made housing a national priority. The biggest push came in 2017, when affordable housing became a pillar of the Big Four agenda. 6 decades later, the ambition is still alive, but for many, the reality remains painfully out of reach.
If you look at the past, when we had rates even up to 20%, for any ordinary Kenyan earning 150,000, it's almost impossible for them to qualify. Because if you apply their living expenses and then put in mortgage, it's almost impossible.
According to the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company and banking sector data, the average mortgage size in Kenya is about 9.4 million shillings, and the average interest rate is approximately 14.3%. A 20-year repayment on such a loan would cost between 80,000 and 100,000 shillings per month in a country where the average formal salary is below 60,000 shillings per month.
There's only one exception to this. And the only exception to this is if you are a first-time mortgage applicant. Our former president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, left a leeway for us, where if it is your first-time mortgage application and you are taking a loan of up to 10 million shillings from the bank, you will get the first 10 million shillings at an interest rate of 9.5%. It's still too high. It's nowhere close to the developed countries. Even in Europe, people pay mortgage rates of 2%. 2%.
Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company will be expected to provide fixed rate, long-term, low-interest funding to primary mortgage lenders, which will be passed on to home buyers.
So the single-digit rate has a very, very big impact. It almost like more than halves the repayment. The second thing is the longer tenor. So it actually means for the same rent that you are paying, you actually pay your mortgage and move into a house.
At the heart of Kenya's house affordability crisis is land. In Nairobi, land alone can account for 30 to 40% of the price of the house, nearly double global benchmarks.
The city population was about 20 years ago was about 3 million. Now we are talking about the city of Nairobi with a population of 4.8 or indeed 5 million citizens. But the amount of land has not increased. And therefore, the challenge is, and we cannot also easily expand our boundaries into the surrounding regions. For example, if we start having our city, the urban development activities, expanding into Kiambus, into Kajiado, and so on, then we face the challenge of urban sprawl. We're eating into the very rich agricultural areas of our country.
Kenya's affordable housing program targets 250,000 units a year, but the housing market supplies fewer than 50,000 units annually, leaving a deficit of more than 200,000 units every year.
People would argue, just buy land and build a house from scratch. Where is the money to do that? There aren't even enough employment opportunities.
A country where young people cannot own assets becomes a country with shrinking opportunity and widening inequality. Fixing housing means fixing land, credit, planning, wages, and even trust. Because until affordable becomes truly accessible, the dream of owning a home will remain out of reach for millions.